And we're going to start off talking about Pierre Emile Hojbjerg. There's been a lot of talk about his future. You know, his future's very much up in the air. We heard from reliable journalists saying that he's waiting to hear from the club if he's needed for his future services. Forms, what are you feeling? Would you rather keep him? Would you rather sell him? How do you think it's going to play out?
It's a difficult one because I was thinking about this earlier. When you break it down, in terms of like sellable players, I'm putting my Levy hat on right now. In terms of like players that are actually sellable, I'm not talking about Son and all like the actual real valuable ones. Like Hojbjerg is probably one of the most valuable sellable players we've got because he's young still-ish, 27, which in nowadays football isn't old at all. He still does a job, and I think he'd be very desirable in another European team. So I think in terms of if we needed some cash and we needed some value for a player, Hojbjerg is probably the one to sell. Me personally, I don't want him to go anywhere. I think he still contributes so much to the team. And I think with the likes of Lloris looking like he's heading out the door, we can't lose too many leader roles that we've got in the squad. Because, yeah, you can bring in players who are typical leaders and like to lead on and off the pitch, but you also need those leaders who have been around for a while and know where the club's headed. And I feel like of all the dead wood, Hojbjerg is definitely not dead wood.
Ashmatic, how are you feeling on the situation?
He can go. He can go. The way I see it is... I'm sorry.
You're hurting him, man.
Everything I just said just
Yeah, I'm not on board that whole Viking chat, man. Like, I think we can replace Hojbjerg. Shock horror. I think we can replace him. I actually do. For the system that we're looking for, I want someone that is accountable. I want someone that has legs off the ball and legs on the ball. I like someone that can bring the ball from the back, right? From the back and enjoy and connect the midfield to the attacking third and stop Kane from dropping in that hole. I want Kane to stay up there and we have a midfielder that can actually attack and contribute attacking-wise, not just defensively. And in the Ange Postecoglou system, I think balls going forward and not backwards and sideways. I think we can recruit and we can get someone that's a lot younger in that position, in my opinion.
But Ash, he did improve his attacking output this season. I think it was 5 goals, 5 assists, scored some important goals for us as well this season, one against Marseille. He did, I think, had a bit of a poor maybe end to the season. But do you not think maybe in an Ange Postecoglou system he can improve that output even further, attacking-wise?
Yeah, he could improve, but I just think mobility-wise, he's very stiff. In terms of like, we've got too many players that are similar that don't get about the pitch, if that makes sense. That don't have like a strong, I'd say, endurance, like that stamina, that high energy. So like off the ball, they're busybody trying to win the ball back, and then their first thought is to pass it forward. I remember there was like a game that we played, and he wanted to do 2 or 3 more touches, and Skip just played it into Perisic, like first time, boom. Do you know what I mean? And I feel like Hojbjerg, he's that man that kind of wants to pass it, keep possession, instead of hurting teams and being direct. I do concede that, yeah, it was probably one of his best seasons in a Spurs shirt for goals, output and assists. I do agree, but I think there's better players out there that can do what he's doing. And yeah, that's literally it. I just think Hojbjerg's average.
Would you not blame that on? Would you not blame that on the system though? And I'm not saying that
Hojbjerg
deserves to be a starter left, right, and centre every single game, week in, week out. I think there are definitely better, younger, fitter, more movie, roundy players that we can sign. But I just think in terms of the 2 systems, or the 3 systems, sorry, and Jose, because we signed him under Jose, didn't we? So Jose, Nuno, and Conte, under those systems, we haven't seen him in a more attack-minded kind of system. Like even in the Danish squad where he sits further forward, it's a system that we see him playing further forward, and we see him actually become a little bit more effective So I wouldn't mind seeing him in a Postecoglou system or a, dare I say it, Pochettino system when it all crumbles and he comes in November.
It's,
He
it's
can.
interesting. Go on, Ash.
No, I was going to say he can, but I just think there's younger players out there at the moment that can do what Ange wants, if that makes sense. And if we can get value and
Yeah.
money for him, I just, you know what it is for me? I just watch him and I'm like, where's the accountability certain times? He's like, when you're playing football, you have to take risks, even if that pass doesn't, come off. I feel like he's a very safe player and he would prefer to keep possession, pass it backwards and pass it sideways as opposed to doing the penetrating pass. I'm not saying that, like, I hear your point where if he's further forward in a Poster, system, or when he was at Denmark, when he was in the midfield three, he was a little more advanced and he was making more chances. I do get it, but I just feel like in his natural game, he just, to me, for what I see, he seems to, he doesn't have it in him. Like, like there's certain characteristics you could just see, traits of players. You could just see, like, I just feel like that's how I get from him. I'm not saying he can't finish a goal. He's very good at finishing. But in terms of how many shots he will take in front of goal or at the edge of the box, I'm just not sure. I'm not convinced.
Before we go to you, Sib, I just wanted to just say something to Ash. Like, we've seen in the past a few players we've chased out the door, Trippiers and people of that ilk. We've chased out the door and kind of regretted it afterwards. I've been on record to say that I kind of agree with Forms. Like, he's one of the ones where he's the most sellable asset that we have, and maybe it's the right time to sell him with 2 years left in his contract. But do you think that maybe there could be a possibility that maybe a year down the line next season, when we're looking at what we're trying to do, that we regret selling him?
I just think personally he suits like an Atletico Madrid or an Italian style midfielder, like maybe like an AC, like a, you know what I'm trying to say, like a midfield, a defensive midfield team that would kind of have a mid to low block. That would be more of his bag. He would suit that style of football as opposed to an attacking, high pressing, a lot of people running off the ball. Like, I can't see him pressing high and like being energetic off the ball. Like on the ball, yeah, maybe like he's quite busy, but I'm just saying like off the ball, I'm not too sure. I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't be mad if he was a squad player. I wouldn't be mad at it. Do you know what I mean? But like Forms is saying, sorry, in terms of trying to sell a player that has a little bit of value that could add to our purchasing power in terms of the transfer market, I think, yeah, we would get money for him, decent money, 25, 35 mil, and that could go towards a younger player that could suit the style and system better. I just think don't be scared to kind of replace what we have because of past history, like Trippiers and stuff, because then we'll never go forward. Do you know what I'm trying to say? It's like, it's going to be the same thing all the time.
Yeah, but I got the feeling that, as much as I've said in the past that maybe we should look to sell him, I just got a feeling it could be one that we do regret maybe next season when we're looking at our midfield options, especially with Bentancur out injured as well for so long. Sim, what are you thinking?
For me, as much, I think I agree with elements of what both Ash Matting and Forms are saying. I think I disagree with Ash when it comes to. I know Hojbjerg has been pigeonholed into this role of he only passes backwards and sideways. But if you actually look at the stats say he has one of the most progressive passes in the league. So he actually passes forward more than a lot of midfielders and a lot of people give him credit for. I think that if you look back at the beginning of last season, he was one of the form centre mids in the league, let alone just for Tottenham. He was so strong at the beginning. But I think the problem we've run into of Hojbjerg is he's been overplayed way too much, and he's been overplayed in a system where if he gets overplayed, he starts to tire, he very easily starts to get overrun quite quickly. And that's exactly what happened in the second half of the season, especially after the World Cup. I actually do think in a high pressing system, I think for Denmark he presses really high up and he presses the back line quite intensely, and I think he can do really good at that job. And I think actually in the occasions for Tottenham when he is asked to press high, I think he's done that role pretty well. However, I do agree with Ash that I do in terms of I think he's a limited player. at the end of the day. He's like, I don't think he's getting much better than he is at the moment. And I think he's kind of at his ceiling in a way, Hojbjerg. And his ceiling is a good player. I'm not saying he's not a good player, but I think there are definitely players who are younger who can come into who can maybe be a bit more and bring a bit more energy to this Postecoglou team and a bit more technical ability than Hojbjerg has. So on that front, I think if we did get good money, I would be happy to see him go. I just don't think we're going to get the money we want for him, especially from clubs around Europe. We're going to be demanding. I think our opening gambit's going to be like 40 million essentially, or 35 million. I don't think anyone across Europe is going to pay that right now. Maybe you might get a Premier League club being able to stump up that cash, but essentially, the choice, how I see things, is: are we willing to take maybe 25 million for him? And just move on from him quickly and being a younger midfielder, or are we going to have to, or do we see enough value in him to keep him for another year or so, maybe even offer him a new contract, and then see how he develops under Postecoglou? I think in a midfield three it would help him, having runners next to him, not necessarily constantly being just two of them in the middle. I think it does hurt him a bit a lot of the time when he's having to do running for another midfielder and there's all that space, especially not only is he doing running for an extra midfielder, but in the back three that we had, you got Longley and you had Dyer, and he's going to have to do extra running because they're constantly getting caught out at the back as well. So I think that I would like to see him in a Postecoglou system, in maybe a box-to-box role, how he would fare and how he would maybe adapt his game differently to how he is. But I think at the end of the day, he is limited player, and I do think there are better players you can get.
I think it's also important what Forms was saying about leadership. It'll lead a massive leadership void within this squad if he was to go.
Yeah.
Exactly. Especially if we're looking to sell Dyer as well. Lloris is leaving. It looks like Kane is going to stay, so he's going to be there. But at least it keeps that bit of the part of the leadership group together as well. And I think
bloody leadership
we
group.
love that leadership group. I don't see who else at the moment out of the midfielders is going to step up and take
Ollie
leadership
Skip.
role.
He's part of the leadership team now.
Yeah, maybe put your trust in Skippy. I guess would I sell him, or I guess if we're not going to get at least 30 million for him, I'd keep him. Essentially, is what I'm saying. If we get 30 million, I think I'd kind of be not happy, but I'll reluctantly sell him if we can get someone who's got a higher ceiling technically than him. Because I just think on the half turn he's not very effective. But I do think he's a very functional player. I'd call him. He can be a very functional player, and I wouldn't be upset if he stayed either.
Forms, you taking 30 million if they offered it to you right now on the table for Hojbjerg?
Look, transfer market says 45 million euros. And I'm one to believe that transfer market's accurate 100% of the time. No, I'd take 30 million. Yeah. I would take 30 million. Because why? Like you would like? Why not? He's only getting older. Actually, no, I'm lying because that ruins everything I just said. No, 40 million cash right now, and I'm taking it. Nothing less.
But you got to remember, Forms, as well. Like 2 years left in his contract. Next year he's going to be maybe even less than 30 million.
But it's got to be worth it for us. You look at I can't remember who mentioned it. I think it was you, Ben, who said that Bentancur's out literally until next year. Not even next season, next year. So it's like we can't. We're going to need cash to fill that hole, as well as bringing in a more attacking midfielder. So it's like if we're then selling probably after injuries our most in-form midfielder that we've got, then it leaves an even bigger hole. So no, 30 million is not worth it. It has to be worth it.
And also, if he has a kind of a good season next season, then I suppose we're more than happy to offer him a new deal. I don't see why not. Yeah,
you're probably right. But Ash, what do you think about the leadership void that it would leave in the squad if Hojbjerg was to leave?
Yeah, no, for me, I saw it in Southampton. He's having a chat with them, down a tunnel. And then when it came out, he switched off and it was his fault why I reckon we conceded. He's the type of man to point fingers rather than lead by example, if that makes sense. That's my biggest problem with it. That's what I mean by him not taking risk. Yeah, he does progressive passing, but in the final third, when it comes to like actually carrying the ball, being assertive, he's quite negative in that sense. And I know like it's down to the system and the style of the manager and the team to play, but he's part of the reason why we were second half FC. if that makes sense. So there's been periods where he's gone missing and he's there pointing fingers. So this whole leadership group, I don't buy it. I think it's part of the problem. So get a technical midfielder in there, 2 technical 8s, and we're cooking. Trust me, we're cooking.